guys, it's Priyanshi and I was reading class 11th, chapter number 1, Hornbill, the Portrait of a Lady, which is written by Khushwant Singh. Notice these expressions in the text and for their meaning from the context. The thought was almost revolutionary, an expense of pure vicinity, a turning point, accepted her seclusion with resignation, a veritable bedlam of gibbering. Fabricolous rebukes the sagging skins of the depilated drunks. My grandmother, like everybody's grandmother, was an old woman. She had been old and wrinkled for the 20 years that I had known her. People said that she had once been young and pretty and even had a husband, but was hard to believe. My grandfather's portrait hung over the mantelpiece in the drawing room. He wore a big turban and loose fitting clothes. His long white beard covered the best part of his chest, and he looked at least 100 years old. Hundreds years old. Sorry. He did not look the sort of person who would have a wife or children. We always think that. He looked as if he could have only lots and lots of shared children. As for my grandmother being young and pretty, the thought was almost revolting. She often told us the games she used to play as a child that seemed quite absurd and undignified on her part, and we treated it like the fables of prophets she used to tell us. She had always been short and fat and slightly bent. Her face was a crisis cross of wrinkles, running from everywhere to everywhere. No, we were certain she had always been as we had known her, old, so terribly old that she could not have grown older, and had stayed at the same age for 20 years. She could have been pretty, but she was always beautiful. She hobbled about the house in spotless white, with one hand resting on her waist to balance her stood and the other telling the bits of her rosary. Her silver locks were scattered untidily over her pale, puckered face, and her lips constantly moved in inaudible prayer. Yes, she was beautiful. She was like the winter landscape in the mountains, an expanse of pure white serenity, breathing peace and contentment. My grandmother and I were good friends. My parents left me with her when they went to live in the city, and we were constantly together. She used to wake me up in the morning and get me ready for school. She said her morning prayers in the Montanus would listen and get to know it by heart. I listened because I loved her voice, but never bothered to learn it. Then she would fetch my wooden slate, which she had already washed and plastered with yellow chalk, a tiny earthen ink pot, and a red pen, tie them all in a bundle, and hand it to me. After a breakfast of a thick slate chapatis with a little butter and sugar spread on it, we went to school. She carried several slate chapatis with her for the village dogs. My grandmother always went to school with me because the school was attached to the temple. The priest taught us the alphabet and the morning prayers, while the children sat in rows on either side of the veranda singing an alphabet or the prayers in a chorus. My grandmother sat inside reading the scriptures. When we had both finished, we would walk back together. This time, the village dogs would meet us at the temple door. They followed us to our home, growling and fighting with each other for the chapatis we threw to them. When my parents were comfortably settled in the city, they sent for us. That was a turning point in our friendship. Although we shared the same room, my grandmother no longer came to school with me. I used to go to an English school in a motor bus. There were no dogs in the trees, and she took to feeding sparrows in the country yard of our city house. As the years rolled by, we saw less of each other. For some time, she continued to wake me and get me ready for school. When I come back, she would ask me what the teacher had taught me. I would tell her English words and little things of Western science and learning. the law of gravity, Archimedes' principle, the world being round, etc. This made her unhappy. She could not help me with my lessons. She did not believe in the things that taught me in this English school, and was distressed that there were no teaching about God in the scriptures. One day I announced that we were being given music lessons. She was very disturbed to her music had lewd associations. It was the monopoly of harlots and beggars and not meant for gentle folk. She said nothing, but her silence meant disapproval. They rarely talked to me after that. When I went up to the university, I was giving a room of my own. The common link of friendship was snapped. My grandmother accepted her seclusion with resignation. She rarely left her spinning wheel to talk to anyone, from sunrise to sunset. She sat by her wheel spinning and reciting prayers. Only in the afternoon she relaxed for a while to feed the sparrows. While she sat in the veranda breaking the bread into little bits, hundreds of little birds collected round her, creating a veritable ballad of chipmunks. Some came and perched on her legs, others on her shoulders. Some even sat on her hat. She smiled, but never shooed them away. It used to be the happiest half hour of the day for her. When I decided to go abroad for further studies, I was sure my grandmother would be upset. I would be always for 7 years, and at her age, one could never tell. But my grandmother couldn't. She was not even sentimental. She come to leave me at the railway station, but did not talk or show any emotion. Her lips moved in prayers. Her mind was lost in the prayers. Her fingers were busy telling the beads of her rosary. Silently she kissed my forehead, and when I left, I cherished the moist imprint as perhaps the last sign of physical contact between us. But that was not so. After 5 years, I came back home and was met by her at that station. She did not look a day older. She still had no time for words, and while she clasped me in her arms, I could hear her reciting her prayers. Even on the first day of my arrival, her happiest moments were with her sparrows, whom she fed longer with the frivolous rebels. Lots of energy. Okay. In the evening, a change came over her. She did not pray, and she collected the women of the neighborhood an old drum and started to sing for several hours. She thumbed the saggings. The last page. Okay. The skins of the dilapidated drum and sang on the homecoming warriors. We had to persuade her to stop to avoid overstaining. That was the first time since I had known her that she did not pray. The next morning she was taken ill. It was a mild fever, and the doctor told us that it would go. But my grandmother thought differently. She told us that her end was near. She said that since only a few hours before the close of the last chapter of her life she had omitted to pray, she was not going to waste any more time talking to us. Bree protested, but she ignored our protest. She lay peacefully in bed, praying and telling her beads. Even before we could suspect it, her lips stopped moving and the rosary fell from her lifeless fingers. A peaceful pallor spread on her face, and we knew that she was dead. We lifted her off the bed and, as customary, laid her on the ground and covered her with a red shroud. After a few hours of mourning, we left her alone to make arrangement for her funeral. In the evening, we went to her room with a crude stretcher to take her to be cremated. The sun was setting and had lit her room and veranda with a blaze of golden light. We stopped halfway in the country yard, all over the veranda and her room, right up to where she lay dead and stiff, wrapped in a red shroud. Thousands of sparrows sat scattering on the floor. There was no chirping. We felt sorry for the birds, and my mother pressed some bread for them. She broke it into a little crumbs, the way my grandfather used to, and threw it to them. Grandmother used to and throw it to them. The sparrows took no notice of the bread. When we carried by my grandmother's corpses off, they flew away quietly. Next morning, the sweeper swept the bread crumbs into the dustbin. So with this, we just completed the portrait of a lady, which is a very sensitive story. Okay, just okay. Bye bye. Have a nice day. And this is not the राउंड सर्कल, मैंने काजल लगाया था तो वो फैल गया. Bye bye.